Hi, I'm Victoria and welcome back to my channel. Exciting news, I'm going to make a scrunchie. I know there's a million tutorials on YouTube about it, and the same with headbands, but I've got to make myself one because I am so tired. I come back in the mornings, and I've got my hair, tied back with elastic, and when I pull it out, it's like it's pulling half my hair out of my scalp and my hair is just splitting. So I looked online for, scrunchies because I thought, oh, this is a straight. I'm a designer, I make wedding dresses and tailoring. Straight lines do my head and curtains don't even talk to me about it. So I thought, I'll buy a couple of scrunchies. Well, they range from anything from about £5 or £6 to about £300. Would you believe it? I mean, I don't know if they've got gold dust in them, but it's something like 60 centimeters of fabric. So anyhow, I am going to make my own, and I thought, you know what, I'll film this. So I'll do all my measurements. I've never made a scrunchie in my life, but so I'll film everything. I'll do my measurements, and you can have a look. And I'm also going to make a headband. I mean, these are scraps of fabric that I had through Spoonflower because I got my art tested. I wanted to have the test for scale, so I've got all these scraps of fabric, and I was throwing them away for goodness sake. I thought, this is crazy. I could do stuff, I can make things out of these. And I've got a lovely piece of knit here as well that I'm going to make a headband, because when I'm working and I've got my head forward, when I've got these little clips in my hair all day long, it's like a vice on my head at the end of the day. Even though they're small, it's pulling my hair. So I thought, if I just have a nice headband and I can just keep my hair off my face. So I'll do a tutorial on the headband as well. This could be totally boring and silly, but hey, so I'm ready to start. Are you? Bye. Okay, I have my two pieces of fabric to practice with. I think I might use this one here, albeit neither of the designs are really good for scrunchies. I think they need to be a lot closer together, but this is only a practice for me. First of all, I'll cut my elastic. My elastic's a bit too wide, so I'm going to cut it down, and I'm going to make it 20 centimeters long, 8 inches, and I'll cut that. And then I'm going to cut it down this way here, because I only really want it to be just over a centimeter, I think. Some elastic you can cut like this, and some you can't. Some it will just fray all over the place. But this is a nice elastic. See, I'm pulling it here. It's not fraying. That's great. So that's my elastic cut. And then I'm going to make my scrunchie on the bias. I like the way bias sits. It sort of molds better. So and I'm going to make it 60 centimeters long. 60 centimeters, what's that? 60 centimeters is nearly 24 inches, and 15 centimeters wide, which is 6 inches. So I'll sort of work out where I want my pattern. So maybe I want it to sit around about there. I'm using my set square, so I'm just making sure that this is on the correct weft grain, a cross grain. This is my warp grain. So let's say about 15 centimeters. I'll cut it here like this. And then I'm just measuring where 60 centimeters is. About here. So at the top I might have to cut into a bit of the white piece. I'm not too sure. Actually, I might bring it down. This is only a practice, so why am I stressing? This is the beauty of set squares. Makes life a lot easier. So let's cut and then we can sew. As you can see, I've run out a bit of fabric here. Not too worried because it's a practice. Now the reason that I have cut my angles like this at the end is because I don't like my seams, I don't like it cut like this because you've got seam on top of seam and it becomes bulky. And I know it's just a scrunchie, but I like my seams offset so they don't meet up and there's so much bulk in one position. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to join these ends. Oh, I know what I'll do. I think I'm going to cut this off and I'm going to patch it up. See if I can patch it up somewhere. That's what I'll do. I'll cut this off. And I'll do a patch up. Haven't got anything where I can really match it up, but it doesn't matter. I need the correct grain. There we go, problem solved. Hope I'm not cutting through a pin here. Oh, I was. If you think that's weird, I used to patch up very expensive evening gowns like this. I would be unpicking antique gowns and then completely remaking them into a new gown. Very stressful. Oh, bit of faffing around, but never mind. Oh, look at that, really a clear match. If it was in a more prominent position, I would make it match perfectly. Don't want to wreck my good shears cutting through pins. Okay, so once I sew those two together, so that's okay, isn't it? Oops, wrong way. Then I'm going to sew these together. So always have to make sure the seam line matches where it overlaps there. And then I'm going to sew it. Always have to make sure that that sits underneath now. I'm going to sew it, but then I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap to pull it through. Okay? See you soon. Okay, so you can see I've got a bit of a patchwork quilt here with my joins. And so I always cut away any excess fabric. I do this on anything. I'll cut this away as well too, actually. Anything that's going to create bulk into the seams, I always trim everything away. And when you're cutting seams, for example, if you've got a whole lot of seams together, imagine this was like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 seams together, and you're sewing them. If you want to cut out the bulk, layer your seams. So the bigger the seam, so for example, if it's about 12 millimeters, half an inch, and you've got about 4 or 5 layers here, trim down. It's a bit of work, but it really layers the bulk inside. Once you turn it around, it's not so thick on that seam. So you'd be cutting a little bit here, a little bit here, and a little bit here. Okay? It takes a bit of time, but it's worth it. Hopefully I explained myself there. Now what I'm going to do is, because I don't have a straight seam, so that when I fold over I know where I'm matching up to, I'm going to fold it. This is quite important to do this because how you turn it, you can't just turn it, you can't just sew it and just turn it through. It doesn't work like that. So fold it over, make a mark here, make a mark here, and do the same on the other side. Make a mark here to turn it. So the reason why these marks are important is because of the way I actually, there's quite a few ways how you can bag things out, but I do it like this here. So I push. The other way is you can leave a gap here as well. I actually push these to the center and see those marks there. Oops, a bit fiddly. I join those together there. Pin them. You can see I've made a few more marks actually. And I pin and sew around to as far as I can get before I pull it through, and I'll show you, and then sew up the rest. So I can keep pulling through as I'm sewing, keep pulling through as far as I can, and then I pull it through the other way. So I'll go and sew this and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've sewn as far as I can go. I think I've probably made the gap a little bit too small. Okay, so you can see here I just kept pulling it through and pulling it through as I kept sewing. I can't grab it. So that eventually it gets all pushed through. Can be a bit tricky, especially if it's very narrow, but it can be done. I've seen machinists with very fine bias silk chiffon do this. I can't do it. And now through the gap, okay, so that way you don't have to use anything to prod it through or anything like that. So all I have to do now is just machine that close. I mean, you could hand sew this, but quite frankly it's a scrunchie. It's going to have a lot of twisting and turning. So I'll sew this. Oh, I've got to put my elastic in actually, thread my elastic through, and then I'll come back with a final scrunchie. voila, my first scrunchie. So that's 60 centimeters long on the bias, took about 45 centimeters of fabric, if I'm not, let's have a look, 60 centimeters. Yeah, it's about 45 centimeters of fabric, 18 inches, so it does take a bit more as opposed to cutting it along the weft grain or on the warp grain where you can cut a whole lot more. But I just wanted to try it out, so time to put it in my hair. Okay, the moment of truth. Let's see if my scrunchie works. It actually feels like it's a little bit too much fabric for my little ponytail. Oh, it's lovely. It feels much nicer on my hair than straight elastic, actually. Oh, this is lovely. I think I might make another one, narrower fabric, and probably about 2 centimeters shorter in the elastic, because it just needs a little bit more firm just when I'm walking, you know, so my hair doesn't fall out. Great exercise. Oh, I love this. I could go into mass production. I don't think so. Hi, I'm back again. I found a beautiful piece of raw silk that I'd had from a dress that I'd made a couple of years ago. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've got about 1 meter left, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to make myself a scrunchie to go with my dress. And since I didn't really show you clearly enough yesterday how I actually bagged my little scrunchie out, I thought I'd try and bring the camera closer to show you what I did. I mean, I've been living in my one that I made yesterday. It's just been wonderful on my hair, so comfortable. No hair being pulled out anymore. So I've cut this a little bit narrower today, and I've also cut it longer. I've cut it 80 centimeters long, which is, what is that? That is 31.5 inches, and 10 centimeters wide, which is about 4 inches. So let's go. I'll turn the camera around so you can sort of, I want to show you this fabric a little bit closer. It's so beautiful. Sorry, I made a mistake before. I was saying that this was raw silk. It's not, it's silk dupion. It's shot. So when I say shot, this is what I'm talking about. See how the weft grain has a beautiful blue. It's a slub blue, slub yarn. And then the warp grain is red. It's absolutely gorgeous. It gives it the most beautiful sheen. It's not the easiest fabric to sew. I've actually cut my little scrunchie on the bias again. On the bias grain it doesn't fray so much here, but on the warp and weft grains they fray like, they just go to pieces. But still, it's such a beautiful fabric. So anyhow, that's dupion silk. This here is raw silk. Absolutely gorgeous fabric. And like all my fabrics, if you buy fabric, you should always dry clean or wash them first, depending on what your garment's going to be. But you should always wash it first or dry clean it to get any shrinkage out of it. But again, you can see what happens to dupion. It's just, I mean, to raw silk, the same as dupion. And this is another piece of beautiful raw silk. How gorgeous is that? So something else I wanted to show you about elastic. So there's so many different types of elastic on the market, and a really good way to test the elastic to make sure it's a really good quality, and you want it to return to the position that you started with. For example, I'm holding this here at 20 centimeters, and I'm going to stretch it. I'll stretch it as far as it'll go, and it'll go to 46 centimeters. But it returns exactly to that same position. You can test it a few times. It actually comes out to 48 centimeters and it returns. So this is a really good quality elastic, and I can feel it. This one's just as good. It's just it feels a little bit softer. So if I hold it here and hold it at 20 and I stretch it, it'll only stretch to about 41, and it comes back not quite to 20 centimeters. So if I do it again, hold it at 20. I can get it out to 43, but it is returning to 21. So it is a softer elastic. So you want to make sure that it does return, because after a while, you know, with scrunchies or anything that goes through the wash quite a bit, the hot water will eventually perish the rubber. So you want to have a really good quality elastic. Okay. Also, if you've got garments that have got elastic in the waist and after a couple of weeks, you don't wash them all the time, there might be sort of like a high heavy-duty garment that they don't need washing all the time, but you keep wearing them and the elastic starts getting softer and softer and looser, just put some steam onto it and you'll find it'll shrink back in. Okay. Okay, I have to talk loudly because I've got an industrial machine here. It's an old industrial, so it's quite noisy, but it's a beautiful machine. Anyhow, I start like this and I just make sure that everything is folded. I push it in towards the middle, and there are my 2 marks here that I've got to make sure that I join up so that it doesn't get twisted as I'm sewing. So you can see here, there are my 2 marks. I mean, look, you can put pins there to, you know, keeps and stabilize everything as you go. But eventually you'll get used to not using them anyhow, okay? Just make sure you never sew over pins. It'll send your needle out of alignment. So I use about 6 or 7 millimeter seam. Always keep checking that everything is tucked neatly inside, away from the seam. I mean, the only thing is that I've done it many a time where I've caught this into the seam, not realised, and tried to turn it out and it won't come out because it's been caught. Okay. And then I start pulling. See, from this end here, oops, you can see it coming through from this end here, okay? At the same time, just check where your marks are. My mark's up here, so I've got a bit of way to go. This is easy, this fabric, because it slips easily, but sometimes if it's a thick cotton, it might not pull through so easily. Keep pushing it in. There are my marks there. Through a bit more. Make sure my marks are lined up there. My marks. So if you don't make sure your marks are lined up, you will have a bit of a twist showing. Bias grain is a little bit more forgiving. There. Pull through a bit more. So you can see it's starting to come through here now. Coming to the end. So this is where you just leave a little bit of a gap to pull the rest through and also to thread your elastic. So I'll stop off about here. Oh, I left it a bit, it's a bit tight. This is where I'll push my elastic through and then I just machine it closed. I don't worry about hand sewing it, it's just the scrunchie. Great, isn't it? So it does get a little bit more difficult if it's a very narrow piece of bias, or even straight grain. Great, let's finish my scrunchie. Here's my new scrunchie. It's gorgeous, isn't it? I'm so pleased that I cut it longer and I've made my elastic tighter, 2 centimeters tighter. So now the elastic is 18 centimeters and the fabric is 80 centimeters actually, but narrower, slightly narrower. So I've got more scrunch, more gathers this time. So let's try it on my hair. Oh, I forgot I had the other one in. So I just had a look in the mirror and I think I'd probably like it just a fraction wide. So I think the first one I cut was 15 centimeters wide, which was, let me have a look what that is in inches. That's about 6 inches, yes. And then this one here I cut 10 centimeters wide and that's 4 inches. And I think what I'd like to do is cut one 13 centimeters wide. I'm not doing it now. And my elastic was 20 centimeters for my first one, which is too loose for me. That was 8 inches. And this one here I've cut at 18 centimeters, which is 7 inches. So interesting exercise, and I'm really happy because it's very comfortable on my hair. Anyhow, so I hope you enjoyed my little video. If you want to learn more about pattern cutting, how to make a basic skirt or flared skirt, just click on the link below for my Skillshare classes. I mean, you can just join for a month for free just to have a look and check out a whole lot of teachers at the same time. I mean, I love teaching this stuff. It's my background, fashion. So if you want to know more about hints or anything that you'd like to learn, please just message me. Happy to oblige. Lovely to meet you. Hope to see you again. Bye.